So I'm going to select both of my audio layers, this one here, and hold down my shift key, click on this one, and with both of them selected, I'm going to press L to collapse that stuff, and I'm going to lock both layers so I don't accidentally, mess with them. So notice that if I click on it, it flashes at me, and when it flashes like that, it means it's locked. To stop it flashing, unlock it, and then you can select it. But I'm going to lock it. So the next thing we're going to do is in the beginning here, we're going to put in a little movie, so MOV here. So this writing.mov, just click on it and press Command / and it'll put it on screen like this, right? Now if your video, let's pretend the video is the wrong size. Like you can see here that it actually fits the screen perfectly. It's exactly the correct size. But what if it's the wrong size? So the way you can make sure that it actually fits the composition correctly, you can just right click right on the composition, right on the thing that you have on screen, and use transform, and you can either fit to comp width, it'll fit it to the horizontally, or fit to comp height and it'll fit it vertically, or fit to comp and it'll stretch it so it fits both vertically and horizontally. Okay, so an example like this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to shrink it down just to show you an example. So I'm going to take writing.mov, type S for scale. You can see scale here. I'm going to shrink it down. So the reason why we have green, nasty green, is to reveal that the video is in fact not covering the screen. That's why we chose that nasty color. So if I take, so I'm going to transform this again. So I'm going to right click on my video and go transform and fit to comp, and it automatically resizes it to the composition. Okay, so sometimes your video will be too big or too small to fit, and you need to change it that way. Okay, so you can scrub and you can see there's the video, right? Now we're not going to use, we only need this video like from here to there, So let me show you a quick way to trim this video down. So I'm going to select the profile voiceover wave right here. I'm going to click, I'm going to unlock it and then select it. So now that one's highlighted. If I type I for the in point, it'll go to the beginning of that clip. If I type O for the out point of the selected clip, it'll jump to the out point of that. So then with my playhead at the end of that clip, I also want to trim this video, to also match where that playhead is. So with my playhead at the correct spot, so once again, I'm going to move this and type an O. Oh, sorry, my bad. Click here, select this one, and type an O to jump to the end of the selected clip. Then I'm going to select the target clip that I want, and in order to trim it, to make it to trim it down to what I want, is I'm going to go option, and then right square bracket. Okay, so what it did was that it took the visible part, this is still the visible part, and then anything after that is no longer visible. So that's how you trim it. So I'll do that again. So I put my playhead where I need it to be, right here, and option right square bracket. There it is. That's how you trim it. Okay, now we have to decide which part of the video you actually want to see in here. So I'm going to take this and shrink it like this, and you can see that if I grab this part here, the part that's not highlighted, and I move it, I am seeing a different part of the video right where the playhead is. So the playhead is not moving, but the video is. So what do I want to see? And this kind of is up to you. So while she says this first line, what do you want to see? So in this case, because it's about calligraphy, I want to move it so that he's actually starting to do calligraphy right here. So during this part, he's going to do some calligraphy. So maybe a little bit more. Okay, so if I hit spacebar, you're going to hear noise from the movie itself, from the MOV, and also the audio from the voiceover.
In Chinese culture, there remains.
Okay, you see how it's slowed down there? It has to render a temporary version of that, See this green bar? It's not green here, so it has to render all that for you, and that's why it's taking forever to do that. So the way to make it go faster is change your full resolution. Instead of doing every single pixel, you can change it to, say, a third of the pixels. It will not look great, but it'll render faster. So here with this thing at a third in my composition panel, a third of the pixels, if I hit spacebar, it renders it a little bit faster.
In Chinese culture, there.
Okay, you could even try a fourth or a quarter.
In Chinese culture.
Okay, so just be aware of that. The rendering has to happen in the background. Now, what did I want to say about that? Oh, I don't want the audio from writing.mov to be heard at all. So see this little speaker right here? Turn that off. Boom. So now that one has no audio at all, and the only audio we hear is from the voiceover. So you won't hear any extraneous noise from the video.
In Chinese culture, there remains to be one.
Okay. Now to make this run a little faster, we could take this guy here and zoom in. And then what you do is you want to hear only this part here. This is called the workspace. So put my playhead right at the very end here. So in other words, type an O to jump to the out point, and type an N. It'll take that little blue bar there and put it at that point. So now what happens is if you play it, it'll jump from here to the very end. It'll play, and at the very end it'll jump back to the beginning like this. So
calligraphy.
In Chinese
culture, there remains to be one form of art that is not commonly talked.
So that is your limited workspace. So now it's all completely green. It'll jump back
In
and
Chinese
forth.
culture, there remains.
So once you see all green, it'll run nice and smoothly. Okay. So, and then so the shorter this thing is right here, the shorter this space is, the faster it'll render. If you have more than like 20 seconds or like 10 seconds, it takes forever to render. So shrink that down. Then when you're done, press minus all the way, and see this guy. This should go all the way back to the end again, like this. Just drag it all the way to the end. Okay, so what do we have? We have a video that's being played on top of the audio.
In Chinese culture, there remains to be one form of art that is not commonly talked about. Calligraphy.
So I actually want that video to last a little bit longer. So I'm going to zoom in, scroll a little bit. So I'm using the ball on my mouse, and I'm going to extend this video so it lasts a little bit longer. Minus to zoom away, and so I'm going to watch it again.
Not commonly talked about. Calligraphy.
Okay, so just a little bit longer like that. So again, you can drag the end of the clip to extend it to be longer or shorter. The highlighted part is what is going to be visible, and the non-highlighted part is going to be invisible or not visible at all. Okay, so that's how you can make the clip longer or shorter. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the word calligraphy when she says the word calligraphy. So the word calligraphy is just going to be text. So this is just basically about text. So to get your text tool, normally this is the tool you're working with. It's the selection tool. Now it'd be selection tool is keyboard shortcut V. But to get the text tool, you either click on this T or press Command T to give you your text tool. If you just click once and start typing, you'll see some text, right? Like this. But if you just click once and start typing, it'll type it in one single line, one line all the way off your screen. Okay? So Let's go back to our selection tool. Select that and delete it. You can see that there's a text layer down here. Just delete it. So now the difference is, let's get our text tool again, Command T. The difference is now click a box, a text area. So here's my text area that I want. And as I type now, it'll constrain itself to the box. Okay? So again, if you click once, it'll just be one long horizontal string of text that you type. Or if you click and drag a box, that's a text box. All right. So what I want you to do is to create a text box and type the word calligraphy. And I'll show you how to change some things about it. So select the word that you have, the word calligraphy, and over here is the character panel, and you can change the color of the text that you have selected by clicking on the color swatch here, and then pick whatever you want. I'm going to pick, for now, I'm going to pick pink, or kind of a purplish thing, like this. Hit OK. The actual font family, the font family is whatever you have listed here, and you're off to the right a little bit. Off to the right, you'll be able to see an example of what it is. So like this. So let me show you. So there's the examples, right? So the one I want is called Quizella. So you have Quizella hopefully already installed, so choose Quizella. And I'm going to drag this back here. And then in the character styles, right here, underneath the word regular is where you can change the font size. So if you drag it right to left, it'll change it to be bigger or smaller. Or you can drag it up and down. Okay, so that's the font size. Now, this thing here is called tracking. Tracking is the space between the letters. So if you click and drag that, you can see that the letters get closer to each other or farther apart from each other. Okay, so I want it so that the majority of them are touching each other. So that's the majority of them. Now, a few of them are not touching, like the G and the R, and the G and the I, and the H and the Y. So the way you can deal with that is you put your cursor, you click once, where between the two letters that you want to deal with, and then over here you change what's called the kerning. Kerning is the distance between two letters on either side of the cursor, only two letters. So now I'm just going to drag this kind of like this. So those two are almost touching or touching. Same thing with the H and the Y. So I'm going to put my cursor between the H and the Y. Change the kerning so that they are touching. And the R and the A. And the I and the G so that they're touching. Okay, so now all of my text is touching. All right, so that's what that can do. This is this basic stuff here, and then there's some other things you can play with too. But essentially, that's what this is how you deal with all the character styles. So let's. I'm gonna take my text box and shrink it down so it kind of fits it a little better, like this. And then change to my selection tool right here, this selection tool. Now, it's probably located somewhere, so you can click and drag on it. Now, to make it perfectly centered on the screen, you can just go to your Align panel right here and change Align layers to composition, not selection if you have that. And you want to choose this guy, so distribute horizontally, so that puts it perfectly horizontally center. And then this one here is distribute vertically. So there it is, perfectly center. Okay? If you move your playhead so that the text is above the video, right, you can make decisions about the color and the size and everything. For me, it would make sense to make this white on top of this darker video on the background. So I'm going to change the color of my text to be white. So select the text that you have, text layer that you have, go to your character panel, and the easiest way to change it to white, you'll have these smaller black and white options, and I'm just going to choose the white one. Boom. Or if you want it to be black, you choose the black one. If you wanted to choose a different color, you would obviously click on the color swatch and pick the color that you want. The point being that you have easy black and white here. What I want to do with this text is also put a little bit of stroke on the outside to give it an edge that's a different color than white. So the way to do that is it's not easy to do that if it's text. It's easier to do it if it's shape. So I'm going to convert my text into shapes as if you drew them, as opposed to type them. So what you're going to do is in your timeline, right click on the word calligraphy, and you can't really see that, so I'm going to drag this up so you can see it a little better. Right click on it and choose create shapes from text. So now you have two layers, calligraphy outlines and calligraphy. Okay, like this. So now that we have the outlines, I'm going to delete the word calligraphy, the text calligraphy. Well, so now I just have the shapes, and you can see that it's a shape because it has this little star next to it, as opposed to when you had text, you had a T next to it. Okay. So now that we have is at a shape, we can then select the shape layer, and if you get your selection tool, then you will have the option up here to change the fill and the stroke. So the fill color, again, we want it to white, and the stroke color, just for now, I'm going to choose a red color just to be really obvious and hit OK. And the stroke is a little bit large here, so that's 50 points, and I'm going to make that maybe 2. Okay, like this. And if I click away, you can see that it has a little bit of a red edge. So you pick a color that you think is appropriate. So select the text layer. Make sure you select the text layer. Sometimes you can click away and then you're selecting the movie layer. So select the text layer and then change the stroke color and the size, the number of pixels you want. So let's try 3. Yeah, something like that. So you can also select a color from what's behind it. So see this red color here? So maybe I'll choose that red color. So I'm going to select my text, and I'm going to choose the stroke panel, and then choose this eyedropper, and then eyedrop that red. So now it's picked up that red from that thing over there. And then if I click away, I'll hit OK here, and then click away. Now I have that red from over here. Okay, so that's how you can put stroke on text. You have to change the text to shapes, and then you can add the fill and the stroke to that shape. So let's do some timing for this. So we want the word calligraphy to show up when she says calligraphy. So I'm going to take my bottom voiceover layer and type LL, and there's the word calligraphy right here. So if you move your playhead, you can see that the shape layer exists for the entire composition, and we don't want that to happen. So we want the word calligraphy to show up right about there. So I'm going to select my so right in front of this word calligraphy. So I'm going to hit plus, so you guys can zoom in a bit there. So this is where she says the word calligraphy.
Calligraphy.
Okay. So there it is. So I'm going to take my text shape layer, calligraphy outlines, and if you press the left square bracket, it puts the beginning of the clip right where the playhead is. So that's moving the beginning of the clip to where the playhead is. Now I'm going to take my playhead and move it slightly after the word calligraphy. So maybe at the end of this video right here. So I'm going to select that video, and to go to the end of it, you type O for the out point, and then select the text layer or the shape layer again, and to trim it down, to trim the edge, the right edge of the clip to stop at that point, press Option right square bracket. So now it trimmed it down to there. So what happens is, and don't worry about that. See how the edge of it is slightly off the playhead line? That's because we're zoomed in so far. All right. So you can see that they both. So calligraphy doesn't appear until the highlighted area here. Boom, there it is. And then the video and the text disappears together. Okay. So what I want to do now is make the calligraphy, the word calligraphy, instead of just bam on screen, I want it to fade in. I want it to fade in. So I'm going to select my shape layer, type I to go to the beginning of it, and then type a T to get the opacity or transparency. So T for opacity, or think of it as transparency. I want it to begin invisible. So it's going to start at 0 opacity. So it should disappear. Okay? And if you select it, you can still see the outline just because then you can figure out where it is. Now you're going to turn on the stopwatch for opacity. So turn that on. Boom. You now get this little diamond keyframe right here. And then we're going to move our playhead just slightly over to the right to make it fade in. So instead of manually moving it, though, we're going to hold down our shift key, and then there's the page down button. So what I want you to look at this time. So watch what I do. See this 624? That's where my playhead is at the moment. If I hold down shift and press page down, it jumps ahead basically 10 frames. Okay, so it just jumped ahead 10 frames. And then, so you do that again. You can do it now. So select your text layer. Playhead should be at the beginning of it. Shift page down, it jumps ahead 10 frames. So then what we want to do is at that point in time, we want the opacity to be 100. So now it goes from 0 to 0%, 0 transparency to 100% opacity. And that means it's going to fade in. So let's move our playhead back and hit spacebar.
Calligraphy.
Like that. See how it fades in? Boom. So if we watch our composition now, and just put your cursor just before our text comes in.
Calligraphy. And decades ago.
So what we want to do, the decisions we have to make is how long do we want this text and the video to be visible. And I think it's too short at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press minus a couple times, and I'm going to move this second video. So I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to move it over because I don't want it to be visible quite soon. So then here, I want this to kind of last a little longer. So how much longer?
Calligraphy.
How about there? Something like this. So I'm going to trim both these layers down so that they both end at this point. So, because I want the word calligraphy to kind of sink in a little bit. All right, so the way you do that is you put your playhead where you want the endings to be. I'm going to hit plus to zoom in a little bit. And then select both of these layers by holding down my shift key and then clicking on the top one and the bottom one. And then to trim the end, both of these to right here, is option right square bracket. So they both end at that point. Okay? So what I want to have happen, though, is I want the video to what do you call it? I want the video to fade out first and then leave the word calligraphy there. Okay, so leave the word calligraphy. So I'm going to move my playhead back a little bit from the end there. Select my movie layer only. So I'm going to deselect, which is F2. If you press F2, it deselects everything. Okay, now if that didn't work, you got to go to System Preferences, and in your System Preferences, go to Keyboard right here, and make sure that this button is checked for Use F2, etc. as the standard function keys. So that means if you have something selected like this, and then press F2, then it'll work like it's supposed to. Okay, so with my playhead here, I'm going to select my movie layer, and I'm going to press T for transparency. So now we can see opacity here. I'm going to turn on the stopwatch for it. So I have a keyframe here, and at that point in time, it is at 100%, completely visible. I'm going to jump to the end of the clip. So O for the out point. So now I'm at the out point. I'm going to change the opacity to 0. So now the video part disappears, or it fades away. Okay? Remember, the nasty green will not actually be visible in the final video. That's just to reveal where the problems are. The actual background will be black. Okay? So be aware of that. All right. So let's watch it now.
Calligraphy.
And now I need the word calligraphy to last even longer. So how much longer? I don't know. I'm just going to drag it over. So I'm going to watch that.
Calligraphy.
Cool. All right, so something like that. And you can decide how much longer the word calligraphy will be on screen after the video fades away. Okay, another thing that bothers me is that if you listen to the word calligraphy here, it kind of cuts off and it has this little at the very end of the word calligraphy. So listen to the audio.
Calligraphy.
Little pop there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade that out. So I'm going to move my playhead just before the end of the clip there, right about there. And for the voiceover track, type an L. I'm going to click on my audio levels. So now this thing is it has a keyframe here, and I'm going to press O for the out point, and then I'm going to change this. So 0 dB is nice and loud, normal loud. Anything above positive is louder. Anything below negative is softer. So how much softer do I want? Well, check it out. I want it to basically fade out. So I'm going to drag that down to maybe negative 60 something. So now listen to it. See how it's basically taken those waveforms and shrunk them down. So listen to the end of the clip.
Calligraphy.
There's no more little pop sounds because I cut it right where there's some noise happening.
Calligraphy.
Okay.